Thanks,
See, this
Jason.
is why I need you. I've forgotten about that.
No, Jason. Jason was the man. Jason was the one to remind it. So Jason was
Thank you,
good.
Jason.
Jason, that's your job from now on. Okay.
That and telling me how to chat, Danny.
Yeah, that's it. I'm still learning too. But no, I just I wanted to touch base with them for just a few minutes, just first of all to make sure everybody was okay, and then also to find out if there is anything that they need, from me. They still know that they can communicate with me. If you send me something, that I'm going to give you a quick turnaround on looking at it. You can call me. Talked with somebody last night at 9 o'clock. It's okay to call me. So, feel free to call me if you need me at this stage. But, just send me things to look at if you need for me to look at it before you submit it to Dr. Stone. I will be in communication more after we're about at the halfway, after we come back from fall break. I probably will not probably, I will be in touch with you more. I'm sure that Dr. Lamb will schedule, Alfine, you better be glad I got to see your face this time. Dr. Lamb will more than likely do a town hall for all of you so that we can make sure that we are beginning to get everything, prepared for our final submission to TaskStream and get ready for whatever you've got to do for licensure purposes. So, I will talk more specifically about some of those requirements after we come back from fall break, which we've got about 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks before we do that. But again, if you need me, you know how to reach out to me, call me, send me an email, put it in the internship shell. I check it every day, several times during the day. So just know that I will look at things. Do any of you have any questions before I leave? I've got another session at 7 o'clock. Okay. Well, Dr. Stone, if you need me, call me.
We hope everything goes well down in there in that part of the state and in South Carolina, and you guys get back on your feet soon.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Stone. Bye, guys.
You're welcome. Bye, Danny.
Bye-bye.
All right. So welcome, everybody, to week 5. So we're going to talk about a couple of things, and then I hope I have a little bit of interaction with you all, because by now I hope some of you have had your assistant principal interview, and since that was in week 5, I want to hear how that went to see whether or not you still want to be an assistant principal. I hope the interview didn't scare you or scare you away, or any of the articles or anything that I send you scare you. But let me, first of all, bring us back to Blackboard, the shell. I want to, let's see. I've added some things under week 5. Let me remind you too, the only thing that you saw under week 5, if you looked a couple of days ago, was the administrative interview protocols with the questions that you used. But I've also included some other things in here. Whenever I find a great article from one of the news articles or the places that I get articles from, I really want to share them with you. Again, you're not required to read them. You're not required to write anything. You're not going to get a grade. It's just, I think it's really quite interesting. And I want to call your attention to my South Carolina and North Carolina, which is everybody. This article from the Charlotte paper, I don't know if it was in today's paper or not, but I saw it on one of the websites. A really discouraging article, and I don't want to ever discourage you all from public education, but I do want you to have a better understanding of why we are losing teachers. And probably North Carolina more so than you in South Carolina, but North Carolina is bleeding teachers left and right, and a part of it is from this, you can kind of read to see this survey, which was, I think was done by, I can't remember the name of the place, but it's one of those that talks about the quality of life in each one of the states. So not mean to discourage you, but I want you to have the full force of whatever's going on. The great article, for those of you that's going to be an elementary principal, there's a great article about the negative impact of suspending elementary kids. I don't know how you feel about that. Sometimes, little Johnny is just as, what do they call him? Mean as the snow. What is it? There's an acronym for MOH? No, whatever. It's one of those. You know what I'm talking about. But sometimes suspension is, of course, an option. But this article will give you some really interesting statistics and some things to think about long term when we suspend elementary kids. And I know we don't do a lot of it. Usually it's for a really good reason, but it's got some interesting statistics. Kind of what we've always heard is that you can tell who's going to be the dropout in 3rd grade. This article will kind of tell you about who's going to be that child who's suspended and who misses a lot of school because of negative impact of suspending, which probably is because they bring a lot of behaviors with them. The one above that, the free online courses for educators, the Friday Institute in North Carolina provides this to, it's a web-based, some really great, I encourage you to look at that if you feel inclined to go, and if you're starting to think about what you're going to write your paper about or what you're going to do a dissertation about, because I know you're all going to our doctoral program once you finish this and maybe take a summer off, or maybe not even a summer, but I do want you to have access to that too. And to my knowledge, it is available to our South Carolina teachers. So whenever I find something, I'm going to put it on the shelf. So just know that it's not anything you've graded on or anything like that. Just something that I found interesting and I wanted to share with you. Next week, we are going to be talking about chapter educational research. Well, next week, we're going to be talking about chapters 6 and 9, I believe. 6 from Hershey, 9 from Glickman, which of course is collaborative behaviors, collaborative leadership. So we'll talk about that too. A lot of you have already started doing your articles on Johari's window. I'm enjoying reading that, so keep that up. I also want to comment on something that Danny said, and that all of you have sent me things to grade, so good. Keep doing those. I think if you look at going back to our calendar, which I should have brought up, the calendar for this week calls for you to kind of start putting together your project for number 1, week 5, the CAP's final narrative. Next week, we'll start talking about the SIOP Task 1 and the task assignment Dropbox. That's a fall break that Danny was talking about. I think that's going to be on the week of October the 22nd, 23rd. Actually, we're going to take a break that week, so yay, I think. I'll have to go back and look. Don't hold me to that yet. All right, tonight, any questions on Blackboard or anything that you need? I am trying to stay ahead of your assignments that you're sending in. I hope I'm doing a good job of it. If not, just let me know. I enjoy reading what you write. I really do. And some of you are so far along in the process that you keep me on my toes because I'm having to read and trying to stay ahead of the game. So keep it coming. I truly do enjoy all of that. Let me start by asking you, and I think I can go back to sharing, get rid of this. Go back to that. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Where did you guys go? There you are. Anybody have some experience with your AP interview that kind of stood out, some aha moments with that interview? Anybody want to share? Because I want to talk a little bit about the role of the assistant principal, what you may be getting into. I want to share some things about that. Anybody have some? I'll stop. Anybody? Some ahas?
Well, I talked to my AP, and one of the things that he said when they're hiring a new AP is that they look for somebody who's got experience. So I asked him, what are you going to do with somebody like me? And then he said that he will look for somebody who somebody is willing to always do stuff, and somebody is always available, and somebody who's asking to do stuff at the school. So I thought that was a bit of a ha-ha moment for me.
All right. Anyone else? Any other questions? Go ahead.
One of the things that my particular AP talked about was we asked the question, what would he look for in an upcoming administrator? And one of the things he said was a person that would complement his weaknesses. But he's not really good at data-driven type information. So he would look for someone that is really skilled in that. I am coming from a school that does not do PLCs. We've implemented that program for the two, Tawanda and I, but he has no experience in per se that. And so when we began to talk about it, we talked about how that could actually alleviate some of their problems as an AP and as a principal.
All right.
So I think it was an eye-opener for both of us.
All right. Anybody else? Did anybody, did they kind of share something that you kind of really didn't already know by having an assistant principal or seeing an assistant principal? It's a strange role. It really is. because you don't get to wear the hat. You don't get to be the buck stops here guy, but you are, oftentimes you are where the action takes place. Anybody else? Anything you want to share about the AP? Were the questions helpful for you?
They were, yes.
Good deal.
There is one other thing I noticed about an AP. They seem to be more of a manager at that position than a leader.
All right. Do any of them do curriculum?
That's what I mean.
Did you find that sometimes, now I'm thinking more of a middle school and high school, did you find sometimes that they really don't get in curriculum very much other than to observe maybe the math teachers? Is that true, high school folks?
True. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
All right, well, let's look at the role of the assistant principal. And I want to call some attention, and I will place this on the agenda tonight. I just found this, and so I wanted to share a little bit about it, about the assistant principal job descriptions and all like that. I will tell you, when I was superintendent, and just 2 months ago, I had 26 principals and I had 20 assistant principals in my district. Not as big as Charlotte Meck, but we have about 13,000 or 12,000 students and 500. But one of the things that infuriated me, and I hope none of you will ever get to this point that this is what you want, but I would meet with my assistant principals, and I met with the principals, of course, twice a month. I would meet with my assistant principals separately at the end of the day. I do that about every other month because it's hard to get them because they're always doing duties. But I could quickly tell you that within that group of 20, there were about 8 of them who decided that assistant principal is what they wanted to do for the rest of their life, and they were happy in it. Now, I can tell you as a superintendent, that bothered me because I've got 26 schools that are sitting there that at some point are going to need a principal. And so if I've got 8 people out of that pool of 20 that are not aspiring to be a principal, then my pool has shrunk. And so one of the things that I tried to do in the 12 years I was in Caldwell County was to weed out, and I hate to say that, but to really begin to weed out some of those folks who just wanted to make a career out of being an assistant principal, and I really don't understand it. But in my way of thinking, this first bullet here, I would hope that when you become an assistant principal, that you see it as a career opportunity. And that is not to be an assistant principal for the rest of your life. I hope it's to be a stepping stone to the principalship. And I hope that those 3 or 4 years, or 2 sometimes if you're lucky, that you serve as an assistant principal, that you're like a sponge. You're picking up every single thing that you can get from that principal. And I hope that's not just the discipline, because if you let it, sometimes the system or the principals will give you the roles that they don't want to do. And that is discipline. That's surely what your assistant principal said. They do a lot of discipline. No fun, no growth there. So as you become an assistant principal, think of yourself in that role for 3 years and be a sponge for the entire 3 years. Now, you may be there longer than the 3 years, and you may be there shorter, but I hope that you'll use it as a sponge and do more than supervision. Get into some of the management piece, get into the administration, by goodness sake, get into the curriculum piece. Is that
the chat?
Oh, it's a chat. Okay, well, let me find my chat.
That's me. I'm asking a question.
Oh, go ahead and ask then. I'm sorry.
I just asked, what if the AP does the work for the principal and the staff respects the AP more?
You know, that's probably going to happen, and it happens probably a lot. And the reason for that is because the role of the assistant principal, I think, is still quasi, you're not the bad guy. The big decision about cuts or who has duty and all sometimes doesn't necessarily come from you. So the assistant principal is kind of on that fence, can be on that fence. And an effective assistant principal doesn't allow themselves to become a tool of the teachers. Because if you're just coming from the ranks of a teacher, particularly if you're serving at your same school, you develop a cadre of friends. And what I would always recommend too, by the way, an aside, is that if you become an assistant principal, not in the school that you were serving, because people who have worked with you for the most of your life as a teacher are going to not necessarily like some of the changes that they see happening with you. Yes, there are many schools where the assistant principal is much more popular, and the reason for that is because you are not the bad guy. You're not the one that tells them they can't go on that field trip, oftentimes. Or if you do, you know, it may be because look, principal says our budget's this. And that's the other thing too. I have to tell you that it's a quirk of mine as a superintendent. And that's when an assistant principal blames things on the principal. Oh, I'd like to do that, but Mrs. Smith says we can't. Ms. Smith said this, that, and the other. Assistant principals, you are tied with the principal. That's your team. And you're supposed to be kind of loyal to them and to a degree, unless there's some problems. But did I answer your question? Because there are a lot of examples where the assistant principal is much more popular. And when that principal moves on, those staff will tell you they want that assistant principal in there. As a superintendent, I would never honor that.
Well, like Mason said, I don't think it was not necessarily being the bad guy, but did all the work and was more professional, and we could go and speak with him, and we call in when we're sick, and she had given him so much authority that the principal actually didn't have any too much.
Yeah.
It wasn't about being popular or not having power. It was just being the person in charge and doing everything the principal should do.
That's right, because I can see that, and I have seen that happen too, because the principal's lazy. You're going to get a few of those in your career, trust me. All right. Go ahead. I'm sorry. And because I don't know where chat is. Is it here? Yeah, here. 2 chats. Is there a way to leave chat on the board so I can see it?
Yeah.
You can leave it up and move it to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That's just an average too. But now I will tell you, now how do I get back to my thing? There, I moved you all over here. I'm going to learn so much about Zoom. I don't want to do that. Okay, well, let me go back. I'll figure it out. But right now, I want to talk to you about this. This is another scary thing, though, that most assistant principals serve an average of 14 years as a teacher before moving into an administrative position. So that's odd, too. The pay, I will tell you now, I did find this someplace. This is a study based on, it is an older one by the association, because it's like, I highlighted it someplace, but it's like 2006 or 2009. Where is that at? Oh, 2012. So it's a little bit behind, and some states have done a little bit better. I think South Carolina and truly North Carolina last year made an effort at helping administrators. Not so much with assistant principals as with principals and teachers, but yeah, it would not be uncommon for someone to make more. Now I don't know where you went. There you are. Not to make more. Some of the job descriptions, really it's just whatever comes along, the assistant principal's responsible for. I hope in your conversations with your assistant principal, and I hope this is someone that you can use as a mentor later on to talk about what you're thinking about doing with your career move. But basically, to me, an assistant principal is someone who's got some really good people skills, problem-solving skills, can think on their feet, good judgment, doesn't necessarily see black and white unless you have to, but also the ability to treat people with dignity and respect. Assistant principals are all over the place. Some of the other things, of course, assistant principals, if you are in the elementary level, I have got to figure out how to get you guys back to where you were. There's got to be, would you share your, am I not sharing my screen? Did I stop? Oh, I'm sharing it, right?
No, we see you're not sharing it. There you go.
That's why you were so small. All right. Here you go. Do not let this become a career. Do not let assistant principal become a career. I'd be so disappointed in all of you when I check back with you in 5 years to see, or 10 years, still sitting in the assistant principal's office. We talked about what makes a good assistant principal. I will tell you, when I sit in on assistant principal interviews, what I'm really looking for is a well-rounded person who's got good judgment, good people skills, and is just a good team player, because you're all over the place. If you are an elementary principal, assistant principal, you're going to be more involved in the curriculum, more involved in the actually helping teachers improve instruction. If you're in a high school, middle school, chances are you're going to be stuck in the back office dealing with discipline, buses, and those kinds of things. So if you really want a curriculum experience, my suggestion would be to start at the elementary level. And if you're a high school person and you decide that elementary is where you're going, you'd like to go as a principal, you would probably want to make sure that you have some experience as an assistant principal in the elementary. I found this interesting right here. I can't even believe this. When you ask about the educational requirements for assistant principals, where would someone with less than a high school diploma, where did that 0.7% come from? Where did this 5.1% who had a GED or less? Some college 9% and an associate's degree with 5%. Come on, where are these people working? Unless it's working in a private setting that doesn't follow the restrictions of or the requirements of a license. So I found that very interesting. When it goes down to certification, states are different. You need to make sure that whatever South Carolina requires of you as an administrator, that you have that in place. And North Carolina, of course, even though Gardner Webb is based in North Carolina, what we're giving you is an add-on license. That at that point, then, will come the responsibility of yours to work with South Carolina. South Carolina has a reciprocity with North Carolina, so shouldn't be a problem. If somebody, just break in if somebody wants to say something or ask a question, because otherwise I'll just keep talking, because I still haven't found the chat yet. I know it's up there someplace, but I'll just keep talking. So I don't mind you interrupting. I'm well comfortable with that. Salary range. This is where I saw this, 2010. So these salaries have got to be better now. The Southeast, of course, one of the worst paid places in this great country, although the Southwest also has some, oh, those are high schools. Southwest has some lower salaries as well. The good news for you all is that the projection for the next 10 years from 2012 is that the need for assistant principals is going to grow at a 6% rate. So good timing to be into the pool. And then I'll leave you with some professional organizations for assistant principals. If you are not associated with a professional association, and Jason, I would imagine Charlotte Meck probably has a joint membership where everybody in the district administrator belongs to, I would assume, that last one, the Federation of School Administrators or the North Carolina Association of School Administrators. But you might want to check with your district to see whether or not they buy because now you can buy a countywide membership. And these are great resources for folks. They also have some great conferences. So here's some resources for elementary and secondary school principals. They also accommodate the assistant principal role too. Won't be long before you'll be into that. In North Carolina, and it's not included, but North Carolina and South Carolina both have the South Carolina Association of School Administrators, SCASA, have a wonderful website. If you're mobile and you're looking for jobs, they've got a career center on that site. North Carolina, the NCASA, also has the very same thing. So that would be a great resource for you in North and South Carolina. So those are sort of the some of the the resources that are available. I want to show you one more thing. This is an interesting short little clip, 7 minutes, of this assistant principal served. And one of the great lessons she learned as an assistant principal, I want you to watch it, because when you become the assistant principal, there's nothing more powerful than what this lady did. And I think it will help you grow in understanding the school culture. It may be something that you might want to talk to your assistant principal about doing, but it's a great art.
Students and parents sometimes say principals and teachers don't quite understand what it's like to be a student these days. It turns out there's an effort to change.
Can you all see it?
1,300 principals recently getting off of their usual role and instead follow one of their students for a day.
Can you turn the volume up some more?
Outside the traditional field of public education. That design school at Stanford University and IDEO, a design.
I didn't.
Special correspondent John Tobacco of Education Week followed one principal through the first ever National Shadow a Student Day Challenge. It's part of our weekly education series on making the grade.
I think I've got it as high as I can.
My name is Karen Ritter. I'm an assistant principal at East Lyman High School, which is just outside of Chicago. And today, I will be shadowing a student. Just to get a sense of what students go through during the day. I don't really get to spend a lot students. Usually I'm in charge of things that the teachers are involved in. So it's teacher evaluation, teacher attendance, professional development. Is there a way? I would say 50% is meetings. Do you feel like you know what goes on? I do. You know, just because I do observe a lot of classrooms. Now I'm looking at it more from, you know, the teacher's perspective. But now I want to know what it feels like through the lens of a student.
Our public high school serves some 1,700 students and is both racially and economically diverse. Today, Karen is following a ninth grader.
Wait for me, Alan.
Alan Garcia.
Would you love to be Alan?
Because he came to my office and said he wanted to talk about his schedule for next year. He's in a lot of remedial classes, and he wanted to be changed out of those classes. So I really want to know what makes him feel that way.
She hopes to find out, not just by observing Alan's classes, but by fully participating in his entire day, which started at 7:35 with a boost of physical education.
This is a good class that I was most nervous about because I don't run.
For STEM, input to the test by what comes next. 7 experience starting with learning for one-on-one help. Followed by Alan's usual 2-hour double math class. Then early coffee for a bite. Before jumping into the second half of the day. Full back classes. Literacy, cooking, English, and freshman seminar. Finish line. And for Karen, we check in with her about halfway through the day.
I'm holding up. I definitely feel like my energy level has gone down since this morning. Great. You know, I had to write an essay in literacy, and I felt like I had a hard time concentrating and trying to focus. Yeah, it's a lot of sitting and a lot of thinking. So you can't work with your buddies so I go through this one. Like algebra block, so it's a double period. That was hard because especially it's over a couple of different lunch periods. So every time the bell rang, I wanted to get up and leave, but it's like, oh no, we have another period to go. So we have more time to go.
Double period math is one of the remedial classes Alan wants to change.
It's exhausted at times. It's just like sitting down for too long. Kids get mad and sometimes it puts me down because I'm like, I can be like learning, like, you're still sound like stuff with like something I've been doing for like 7, 6, 8th grade. So we want to be, I would like to be taking French, like woods, metals, all those like types of classes. Because Alan is in the classes that he doesn't have the opportunity for a lot of those electives. He, was placed in certain classes because of his test scores, but I don't know if he necessarily needs to be in that level again. He was getting things and teaching that Alan helped me. Really? Yes, I think Alan represents someone who is very representative of our school. Middle of the road kid who, when challenged, can reach very high expectations. And I think, maybe keeping him at a certain level might hinder his opportunity to do that. So I would like to see more opportunities given to students, and maybe we need to rethink the way that we place students.
Yes.
Not based on test scores.
How else that has changed? Find out is Darren's grade in high school measures both before and after her shadow day. Keep in mind her view was limited to just Alan's classes. We began with this statement. In the school, students learn actively, creating, questioning, discovering. Your grade yesterday was a B. Today?
I would say it's T-.
Her scores also went down for student engagement from B to C+. And relevance. How often teachers drew a clear connection between students' work and the outside world. That dropped from a C to a D.
Good for creativity.
But her take on school climate and the expectations both remained high.
Yeah, we have some work to do. We have some things that we can fix, but it's a great place. I think we provide a safe environment for kids. We have plenty of resources for them. I think I will do some more shadow experiences with an ELL students, with a special ed students, with an EP level students. Because I think they can have different experiences here. It was fun. Do it again. The point is to know what the students are thinking and wanting and start with them.
Franklin Park, Illinois. I'm John Tolenko of Education Week, reporting for the PBS NewsHour. All right. How do I get you back now? Share my screen. All right. Any other things that you want to talk about, or we want to I'll get this. Anything else you want to talk about? The role of the assistant principal, the role of the administrator, what your career goals might be, any lessons learned. The reason why I really liked this video was the fact that this lady had an opportunity to live in the life of a student based on what that student came to her and requested, and I think she learned a lot. And so as an assistant principal, when you get into that role, or even for the principalship, I think it would be interesting to spend a day with the kid and see what they experience. All right. Anything else that we want to do tonight? Because I am done. I was hoping we'd talk a little bit about those AP interviews. Anybody? Hey, Heath, if you will stick around, or hang on, I'll call you, or you can call me a little bit later on and we can connect. All right. So let me bring you back up to next week. If you don't go in here soon enough. All right, next week is week 6, and we'll be talking about collaborative behaviors. Everybody go ahead and have a great week, and we will talk later. Heath, can you chat me your phone number, and I'll give you a call. All right. See you, everybody. Have a good week.
You too.
Hey, Heath. How about we just talk now? You're on mute.
Hi.
Hey, Heath. I'm sorry we haven't been able to connect.
Yeah,
Let me cut off, Heath. Let me cut off the recording because I don't want to record.